Thanks, man. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. Go ahead and tell people a little bit about yourself.
My name's Anthony. I go by Anthony Mazzerello, and just a regular guy. I mean, I do photography, I do some music, DJing and stuff. And, my main job, those are just my side gigs, but my main job is doing, I'm in law enforcement. So I do that, from a 9 to 5. And yeah, so we'll just,
cool. So what you want to come talk about?
Just about life. I mean, the topics that I was thinking about when I was coming here was more like, under the fear umbrella, the love umbrella, maybe some taught lessons, stuff like that. I mean, that's what was coming to the forefront of my mind, and what just kept screaming at me, if you will,
okay.
from within.
So love and fear, that's a little, duality in itself, right? Because they kind of play off each other. But why don't we start with fears, right? Because I think, me knowing a little bit about you and some of the conversations that we've had, I think it's really relevant maybe for you to share some of the things that you've learned and some of the things that have come up, because I think you have a lot to share, right, when it comes to that. So go ahead and share with me just a little bit about kind of what are the items that came up in your mind about fear.
Well, the most recent is, I currently went through a separation breakup, and there's a lot of fear involved as far as, what happened, what did I do, what part did I play?
And why was that fear?
Well, the reason being was because I felt like I failed one more time, because this was somebody that I was planning to spend pretty much the rest of my life with. We made each other some promises. We're going to get married. We're going to have a kid or 2 or 3. And
damn, dude, that's a lot
when
of kids.
all that, yeah. And when all that did not happen and we decided to separate, and she said, I don't want to do this. She was the ultimate one that said, we don't want to do this. It put me in a downhill position, a lot of anger, a lot of, like I said, what happened, just fear-based stuff,
So you're saying that the anger is a byproduct of the fear?
Yes.
To hide the fear?
Yes.
So talk to us about the fear, because I'm sure that a lot of people have the same experience, right? We just talked, I'm kind of going through something similar myself. So what is the fear that comes up for you? And let's take people, let's make this real, right?
Right.
Somebody just communicated this to you. You just find out. What comes to your mind? What came to your mind that hey, I don't know if this is working out. What was the first fear that you had to basically deal with?
Honestly, I was thinking, is there somebody else involved? Is she up to something? Does she have a different
Why
agenda?
is that a fear?
Just because it was my own insecurity. Honestly, I mean, because of where I come from and what I've dealt with before. The last person that didn't want to be with me and deal with me after being in a relationship, she decided to be with somebody else, and it wasn't too long before that. Maybe it was a couple of years, maybe 2 or 3 years before this happened, and something I never really dealt with, deep down within. I mean,
since then you didn't deal with it.
Since then, with that issue. I mean, I dealt with it, but I had a really hard time with it, because of anger.
What was it that you had a hard time with dealing with? When you say that, what comes to mind?
Well, just accepting the fact that somebody decided not to be with me. There was somebody else involved, and I felt, pretty much this big. I didn't feel like the man that I am, or I was, So there's a lot of pretty much turmoil, back when. And you fast forward the tape, and now I'm with this individual and thinking everything is good, everything's going, living life, working on myself, traveling, music, photography, creativity, 9 to 5, doing all this stuff and having a good time. And then all of a sudden she moves due to the military, and I stay here, and I was supposed to go with her, but I chose not to because of my little one. Yeah. And then not even a month and a half later, she decides, well, I don't want to do this no more. It's over. So right away I went into the mode of what happened last time. You see, this fear started coming up, who's involved? Is someone involved? What did I do wrong? I'm not this, I'm not that.
And it could have been none of that. That's just the only fear that you have.
Right.
So that's what comes up, right?
Right.
Totally get it. Yeah.
Definitely. And there was just a lot that came out from it. And I try to go to the drawing board, and write, journal, and, I do some meditation. I meditate.
So do things that you feel, what do they do? Do they center you? Do they allow you to think objectively? So those things that you're doing, what are they doing for you? When you say that, journaling and yoga or possibly working out, what are those things actually doing for you while you're dealing with the fear?
A lot of them actually, most of them, with the exception of, going to the gym, working out, it actually really centers me, because what that does, when it centers me, it allows me to be in the moment, especially when I'm putting pen to paper and I'm writing. I have to stay focused based on what I'm thinking and feeling and putting it through paper. There's something that happens, some type of energy and power to where it allows me to put the stuff on paper.
So does that mean like you're consciously having to acknowledge the way that you feel?
Yes.
Or you're having to consciously work through the emotion of it? Like, what is it that's actually happening through the journaling for you? Like, what do you get from it?
Well, just like you touched on the emotion,
Okay.
getting in touch with my emotions on a deeper level. And instead of it bouncing up and down, in and out from within, from my head to my heart, whatever it is, it's kind of acknowledging it, feeling it, and putting it on paper.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
kind of
sure.
like that energy. It's something that comes through me that goes onto the paper. And then, I kind of read over it and I feel the way I do. A lot of it at that time was anger. That's the only word I could think about when I think about this.
So why is it that anger is like the emotion that's really prevalent for you when these things kind of happen?
It's my go-to. It's been my go-to since I was younger, since I was small.
What is it that anger does for you?
It makes me feel a little bit better once I kind of exhale, so to speak, via anger. When
Do
I
you
get
think like
pissed
it's
off
an idea of making you feel powerful when you don't feel powerful?
Yes,
like anger.
it does. It does. It's kind of like, we could call it a mask, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality of it is it's all fear-based. I'm actually scared and fear. Like what's going to happen? What's up ahead? It's something foreign, something I don't want to deal with.
It's also the unknown, right?
The unknown, yeah. And that's the scary part, honestly. There's only two systems, and I believe this is the reason why fear and love came up, because those are the only two systems that are pretty much reality, if you will. If I'm not mistaken, it's
Okay.
more like you cannot worship both. You get what I'm saying?
What do you mean by worship? That's a
Well, if you're-
particular word to choose.
Right. You can't live in both. You can't be in fear and live in love, and vice versa. You get what I'm saying? You could only live
Why do you say that? Like
through my own experiences. Like when I'm so for example, when I'm in fear, there's no way I could tap into love right away. It
Why is
takes
that?
it takes a lot of steps, a lot of work, a lot of mind centering and emotional centering in order for me to get to the place of love and to accept and to be open-minded and to be okay.
Okay.
After doing footwork, after doing taking the steps in order for me to get to that point, it takes just a lot of tenacity, if you will. It's a lot of little things that add up. It's not like I could just flip a switch from within naturally and channel my way from fear 1 minute, 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes to love.
So how do you deal with, how do I want to say this? Because loving is fear, right? Love is an unknown.
Yes.
So if you can't have both, then how do you deal with fear once you've acknowledged that you're in love?
A big part of it is acceptance. For example, it's going to sound kind of interesting, but so for example, at work, I recently got written up, right? Recently got written up for something that was on my watch. However, it wasn't my doing. It was.
Well, just be careful, right? Because we're recording this, so
Right.
let's not go into it too
Right,
detailed.
right,
Just give us more of the very like the 30,000 foot view of like what is it that came up for you, right? Because the details are not going to give us anything. It's about what happened to you, right? Like what connected.
Right.
So something happened at work.
Something happened at work. I got written up. Okay.
And what
bottom line
happened
is,
for you?
Bottom line is for me, since I was living in a love state, so to speak, because I've been working hard on myself
Yeah.
and been in a really good space from within and out. They provided me the write up. They presented it to me. And I just accepted it and said, okay, it is what it is. It happened on my watch. It won't happen again. And this is my consequence. And just I'll accept it.
Yeah.
Whereas if I was in fear, now I'm starting to question them. I'm starting to fight it. I'm starting to say, no, this, no, that. What the F? What you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I'm just
Okay.
going crazy. That's the difference between being in fear and being in love. The best way I could describe.
No, yeah. And I mean, obviously, this is all about you and kind of how you process things, right?
Right,
Because
right.
people are going to connect with this. And that's the important part of this whole thing and why I'm doing this. So for me, what comes up when you say this is, so you deal with fear by tapping into anger, but yet you don't do that when you're in love. Why? Like, why is it not mutually exclusive?
Part of it, and I've been noticing this about me, is part of it is naturally being lazy, if you will.
Lazy about what?
If I'm in a good space, I kind of just flow with that as opposed to trying to work to get more in touch with it. But if I'm in fear, I try to work out of it because I don't want to stay in it. Does that make sense? You know, kind of like.
So let me see if I understand you. So you're saying that naturally you'll try to understand, you'll try to work on yourself more when you're in fear, but when you're in love, I don't think you mean to say lazy, but what I think you mean to say is that you get very man, now the word
complacent. I mean,
complacent. That's the perfect word I was trying to get to.
I think that's what I get more complacent when I'm in love. I'm more complacent. I'd rather just flow and maintain, as opposed to, working just as hard as I would if I was in fear. Because when I'm in fear, I don't want to be in fear. I don't want to live in fear. I don't want to stay in it.
So then you feel like you have to work in order to get out of that state.
Yeah, I have to, because I hate that feeling. I don't like that feeling. I don't want to live in it. I mean, I'll feel, but at the end of the day, I don't want to stay stuck there, if you will. I just don't. I hate that feeling. I hate the way I feel. I hate the way I see things. And
you see, and that's the strange part for me, is because in my mind, I'm constantly at work. I don't know how to turn it off. I don't know how to have a day off. I'm just constantly churning and working through things. And some people have expressed to me that they feel that that's a little too much for them. And I guess some of the philosophy that kind of comes to me with that is like, we're all on a certain budget of time. How much that time is, we have no idea.
Right.
So in my mind, I'm like, if I don't work a day, that's a day that I didn't improve myself with. Right. So that's my whole thing. But it seems that yours is more fight or flight than it is like a commitment to yourself, which is weird to say because I do know you on a personal level,
right?
And you do have a commitment to yourself to improve. So are we maybe dancing around the fact of like motivators, like certain things motivate you more than others?
Yes. Oh yeah, definitely. I'm very motivated to be successful in my career, right? Like very successful. However,
things that you do, because we could say that you're at a flexion point where different things could be a career for you.
Yes.
You're a very creative person. You do photography. You're great at DJing. And then you have what we'll just call the 9 to 5, right?
Right.
Most
9 to
of
5.
us have that. We all have a 9 to 5. So, and I really don't like calling it a side hustle, right?
Okay.
As some people call it, because it's not a hustle. To you, this is something real.
Yes.
We're all just trying to find our passion and like monetize it somehow so that we can do it every day.
Yes.
So, and the reason I say that is because there's so many things that you're working on. How do you then say, I'm going to stay committed to working on myself as I pursue all these other things that I'm very passionate about, while still making money? Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense.
That's the struggle, right?
Right. Very.
So how do you kind of divide your time and your commitment amongst those?
It's all about balance, man. It's all about what I realize is balance. It's like what's important and what is it, of course, what I'm good at of the 3 or 4 things, right?
Mm-hmm.
That I truly authentically want to do and possibly do as a career. And what steps do I need to take? For example, music and DJing, right? I have a 6-year-old, so it's very hard for me to be at the club, especially, with 2 separate homes. She's with me certain days. And on those days, I have an opportunity to DJ. However, I cannot because, it's just her and I, right? As opposed to photography makes more sense with me having a 6-year-old because I could go book a shoot and I could take her with me.
Mm-hmm.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or we can make it work to where she's in the realm, or you see what I'm saying, which makes way more sense. So now I have to think, okay, what steps do I need to take in order for me to create and do my passion, which is both of those, music and photography. So let's say photography makes more sense, right? So I'm going to do whatever it takes for me to kind of work on that balance in order for me to, take these steps so I could pursue that, including my daughter, because it's just her and I. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no. And so since we're on the subject of fear, right, that's where we started. So what are the fears that come up in order for you to commit to say that this is you? You can do that.
I have a fear that I'm going to fail if
and it's only exclusive to you, by the way. I'm sure nobody else ever feels that.
Right. It's just a natural fear that says, you can't quit your 9 to 5. You can't just go out and just pursue.
Well, I mean, I think it's very difficult for any of us to quit our 9 to 5 per se, because, well, that's kind of what's paying the bills. And, but I don't think that that's the reality of your fear.
Okay.
What is the reality of your fear?
It's a good question, man. You have me thinking. You have me thinking huge on that one. I just feel, I mean, I think about this every day, if not every other day for sure. It's, if I don't do the footwork in order for me to pursue my passions and creativity, or if I do take that path, I feel like I'm going to fail, like it's not going to work out. Because it's happened before with DJing when I first moved here. You know?
How did it not work out, though?
It did not, because one, I didn't work as hard as I probably could, and I was burning bridges at the same time. You know, I was more into probably other stuff other than DJing and music and the business aspect itself. I'd rather do the fun stuff outside of that.
Right.
And, you know, however, you know, I was in a position where I had to make more money, and the money wasn't coming in quick enough. So what had happened was I had to get a day job. At that time, I wasn't working. So I had to get a day job, and then getting a day job, now I have to focus on that. And, you know, the music just fell on the back burner, and it just, time passes.
So, you know, that's the same thing for all of us, right?
Yeah,
we all have to
just
say, hey, there's this thing that we have a very natural passion for. Maybe I don't have responsibilities. It makes it a little easier. But instead of finding a way to convert that to reality, we get in the trappings of either doing things that are not conducive to our result or our outcome, right? Or we just enjoy it while we have it, and we don't know how to grow it into something else, right?
Yes.
The thing that comes to my mind is like strippers, right?
Okay.
That's the difficult part, is that most of those girls make a lot of money if they're any good at what they do.
Right.
But instead of being, well, not all, right? I'm sure that there's some, you know, edge cases that are very successful that did it right. It's just more of, that's not common. And for somebody to make that type of money, it's not normal to make that type of cash outside of drug dealing and a career.
Right.
And how do you work on a career if most of those years that you were supposed to start building towards entering the career, you were stripping?
Right.
And now you have a taste for the money, for that level of income. What do you do now, right? To me, that's the same rat race. You were in the point of like, yeah, I need to make this happen. Maybe you lost a little bit of focus or whatever the situation was, but you had to acknowledge like, hey man, I have to get a job.
Yes.
And then that's kind of where we imprison ourselves in this rat race mentality of like, now it's 9 to 5 and hey man, I'm going up for a promotion. I can get that extra buck.
Yeah.
And now your focus and your priorities change, right? Because now you're consciously active to creating success in the thing that's feeding you. And this podcast that you're on is an idea of a potential that could be, but maybe never gets realized.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense. Yes.
But if I approach this situation with you and everybody else that's going to come through here with that same mentality, then where's that steam that's going to carry me through to say, but I'm not making money with this. And, you know, I don't understand how I'm going to be able to do this. I'm not focused on any of that. Right. I am focused on one at a time. So we had a conversation similar to this, right?
Yes.
About some of these items. So that's what I think is valuable for you to share is, what are the fears that you had to overcome to create? Because I've seen you. I mean, I've seen things starting to change, right? I've seen you be a little more focused on your passions.
Right. So
what is it that came up, and how is it that you're overcoming it?
Well, I will say this that comes to mind is when I take action and just do it.
What do you mean by that?
As far as with my creativity, you know, let's say photography. I mean, just the other day, it's when I'm in it, I put myself in it, and I'm watching YouTube, and I get some type of inspiration.
Yeah.
You know, and I have aspiration to do some things, and I take the action and just do it. That's all it takes. I mean, literally, like the other day, I got this new lens, right? And I spent X amount of dollars and spent all this money outside of my budget. But this is the lens that I truly wanted.
Yeah.
This is the lens that I see. It's going to do this for me. It's going to do that. It's not cheap either. It doesn't cost peanuts, but it's a high quality lens.
Right.
And
so you invested in yourself.
I invested in myself, kind of beat myself up and said, damn, but I tested it out the other day. It was over the week. It was on Friday night. I tested it out at home, have a new light set up. took the pictures, and I was like, wow, like it amazed me. And I
Yeah.
was so inspired and so happy.
Well, that's cool.
And that's how I've been overcoming a lot of the fears, is when I dive myself into it. Same thing with music. I had a gig that came out of nowhere to go DJ in California, in Costa Mesa, for a graduation party. And it was a random phone call from someone that I knew back in the day, 10 years plus. He called me, hey, do you know anyone in this area? And I just started getting all my gear together. I just DJ'd for another law enforcement agency at a special event here in Wet and Wild. And so I invested, X amount of dollars more to get everything up to date, because everything outdates. However, between that gig and getting this gig, the in between, I started just taking action and doing it. You see what I'm saying? More business, more investing, let me get part of,
So less analyzing and more doing.
More doing, yes. And it's the action from what I've learned and what I've done that's actually helped me overcome the fear. You see what I'm saying? Regardless of what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
No, I mean, I get it.
Yeah.
The thing is, like, I this whole idea is for us to share with others. Hopefully, if you're watching this, like, some of this makes sense to you, right? You might be in that same situation, or you may be past that. Go help others in your life that maybe you've overcome with, that you see having this struggle, right? The idea is we all need to help each other.
Yes.
Right?
Line,
You're going to help me. I'm going to help you. We're going to figure this out all together, right? The idea is that you want to achieve success while elevating everybody around you, right? In your circle of influence.
Yes.
Because it's no fun to be at the top with nobody that you trust, or that, you know what I mean, that you're cool with.
Right.
Because then it's just a lonely place.
No, it is.
So the idea is, why not champion everybody else around you, or at least watch this and be like, man, maybe I need to do more. Maybe I can be that champion, right? Like, in the lack of somebody being in your life that can do this, it's one of the lessons that I had to kind of learn the hard way, is like, we can't all just wait for a hero to come, right? Sometimes you have to find a way to become that hero for others.
Yes. Because
you have to be that difference in the world that you want to have. Does that make sense?
Yeah, a lot of
And that's kind of how I see you, is saying, like, man, you have a kid, cute little girl, you're raising her. And the idea is, some of us might be lucky and have awesome parents that just, knew how to parent right. Some of us don't. I didn't necessarily have that. So
yeah. I mean, we could talk all day about that. Yeah.
So the idea is, but there's still value in that.
Yeah.
We learned what not to do.
Yes.
Does that make sense? So
true.
Regardless of how we feel about it, you need to take the good and the bad, and whatever was good, create that and make it better, and whatever was bad, create it into
something positive.
Exactly.
And that's what I've done. I've channeled
it.
I channeled my negative into positive, honestly. But it's taken a lot of blood, sweat, tears.
Well,
tenacity.
fears, right? A lot of fears that you had to overcome.
Yeah. A lot. And it's like, especially when I was 19. I mean, I'm 34 now, right? But when I was 19, it's like, and I made a transition. I got rid of all those friends that I used to hang out with and weren't going anywhere except the penitentiary or death. And it's like, I need to figure something out. Because I don't want to go that route. I don't.
What made you actualize that? Because it's one thing hanging out with friends, and then you just get caught up of like, but they're my friends, and how am I going to tell my friends?
Guys I grew up with, guys I played.
So what is it that you had to learn in order to make that decision for yourself? Because that's a pretty hard decision.
Taught lessons. Now we're talking about lessons, right? So, I mean, I was a bad kid, right? As a result, being a bad kid, I ended up at juvenile hall, camp, all the other stuff, and ended up at ground zero, so to speak, with no money, nothing to my name, and after doing that, pretty much my whole teenage life, since the age of 10, hitting streets by 12, you get what I'm saying? And having a lot of older brothers and family that influenced me in a negative way. I mean, by the time I was...
They all had done the same thing?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I had brothers come out of the penitentiary, like all kinds of stuff, uncles, like, I've seen a lot as a kid. And that was cool at one point, right?
Yeah.
So after I started getting involved with, getting in trouble a lot in my whole teenage life, getting kicked out of school, ditching, doing all this stuff, doing stupid stuff that pretty much committing crime. By the time I was 18, 19, I said, you know what? I don't want to keep doing this. I don't. I'm tired of, going to jail or going to juvenile hall, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And I need to make a transition and make some changes. And there were some people that came into my life at that time for whatever reason. They're not in my life anymore, but they helped inspire me, saying, yo, like, you have to make some changes, which was people, places, and things. So I made a decision upon myself. The last time I got out of jail was, I'm not going to do this anymore. So I have to kind of get out from what I'm involved in as far as the people, family, which is very hard.
Yep.
I had to get rid of the family, my cousins and stuff, my friends I hung out with, and just pretty much start from scratch. and it took a lot of,
Well, that's a lot of fear.
yeah,
The fear
a
of the
lot.
unknown.
A lot.
The fear of like not knowing what you're going to do.
Yeah, because I remember vividly, I was 19 years old. And I'm like, well, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
Because I don't know any better. I mean, my mom taught me everything I should not know. Bless her heart and soul,
Yeah.
And I love her to this day. She's not around anymore, but, she taught me a lot about being a strong woman
Mm-hmm.
and a dictator and a lot of other stuff, right?
Right.
And I took it for what it was, and I'm grateful for that.
Right.
So bottom line is, I didn't know any better other than listen to what, the ones that are successful, listen to those people. You see what I'm saying? Kind of emulate them, ask them questions.
How are you defining success? Because that's important. Like in your mind's eye, when you see a successful person, what is it that you see?
Someone that's authentically happy and has a healthy life. And
So it has
healthy-
nothing to do with status quo, social standing, money. Has to do with you saying like the full package.
The full package, yeah, because money's cool. It helps.
Yeah.
I mean, I came from nothing, like welfare. Mom was on welfare. I never had money for anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now you fast forward, and nowadays I have a little money. I have some investments going,
Yeah.
and I'm able to buy some things. So money helps, but I know and truly believe, due to my recent experience of
Right.
being in a downhill, fearful spot, that the money doesn't even matter. What
Right.
matters is from within and out. So to me, a successful individual is someone that's authentically happy and that's actually logical and smart. You get what I'm saying? Like someone
Yeah.
that's okay, that has that humility, that's okay with self, and then of course all the other stuff comes into play. But to me, that's the best way I could describe it.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I agree with you to a certain degree that to me, that's what I find successful is a person that's willing to look at themselves very introspectively and then start figuring out where they want to be in each one of their domains in life. Right. I mean, it's
Right.
pretty important. It's, I'm sure that you and I both know very successful people that in the term of success is they're affluent, they're well off, maybe they have a few businesses, but then they seem not to be very focused on like empowering themselves or empowering their family or
Right.
the other domains in their life, right? Maybe their kids. So for me, I agree with you. A successful person is a person that learns how to find balance within all their domains
There you go.
to
Yep.
create the life that, when you really start thinking about what does it take to create this life, you're like,
Right.
man, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of conversation. That's a lot of relationshiping.
A lot of
That's
questions.
A lot of questions, right? And then you're like, wow, you respect that person's struggle
Right.
more because you realize that it's coming from an authentic place where essentially the hard work is all of us looking at ourselves and taking on our demons.
Right.
That's
right.
the hardest work that anybody will ever do.
Right.
And I feel that that's the thing that you're speaking into about the fears is that there are these ideas of what does it mean? The uncertainty causes us to have fear, right? Think of death, right? That's most of the fears that most of us have is this idea of, I don't know how to process what death means, right? Because we have no looking glass. We can't see past it. Nobody's come back from it. So now this is this thing that none of us can logic through,
Right.
but it will happen.
Yes.
So that's the ultimate fear-based item that we have. Most of us maybe don't look at it, but that's what you need to look at when you start wanting to take on the harder fears that you have in your life, which is, I don't understand them, but maybe I need to work towards them.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes a lot of sense.
So for the fear portion of this, I really think that it's important for all of us to kind of understand that none of us are, how do I put this? None of us are above it. None of us are
Right.
going to be able to overcome it. And it will never be this idea of, if I just work hard enough, I will no longer fear. You're always going to fear.
Yeah, you're always going to fear one way or another.
The
It's
idea
at
is,
different levels.
right?
I believe that.
Yeah.
You know?
And so the idea is having a relationship with fear, a good relationship to
Right.
say it's okay, but it's not okay to stay there.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
And take in the misery and the suffering, like they say, it's all optional,
And then to the point that you made, which is you can't hide behind anger, your fear, because now that's not going to allow you to be the person that you're looking to be, because now you're counter-reacting it. You're not actually accepting it. You're just trying to shield yourself from it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So for me, it's very important for all of us to understand that fear is a tool. as weird as that sounds or counterintuitive
Tool,
as
yeah,
it is, it's a tool
I'll take
that
that,
you
yep,
have to
yep.
look at and say, what is fear showing me? Right?
Right.
It's like that mirror that we don't want to look into, and we have to.
Right.
And we have to look at it, and we have to be patient, and we have to be understanding, because both you and I are going through situations where that is a very real thing.
Right.
And for me, it's been a great teacher, something that I know sucks, but something that I also have this weird calling to say, but I want to be a different person. Mm-hmm. So I have to look. I have to look in the ugly places that exist.
Right.
Because if not, what am I leaving on the table? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? As far as like creating value for myself, because there's going to be no value for you or somebody else, but it holds all the value for me to make sure that I'm looking there. Does that kind of make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So to me, that's where fear becomes the most important thing to teach us, because it shouldn't be something that we hide from. But in order to do that, you know, for me, the way that I kind of learned this, because I don't come from a very healthy family. You know, my father was diabetic and a lot of health issues, never took care of himself. And that's one of the things I hope that I can actually do throughout these videos, to hopefully they see that I'm trying to get into shape, right? Because, well, round is a shape, but I'm trying to get away from that shape. And the idea is to kind of take ownership of my health again, because I don't think I did that, right?
Yeah.
And to me, that's basically one of the learning lessons, is that it's working out is very counterintuitive. The idea is I'm going to get up to go hurt myself, right? Well, not hurt yourself, but make yourself uncomfortable.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so the idea is you do that day in and day out for this thing that one day might come if you stay consistent.
Consistency,
right?
Yep.
That's what I draw now a parallel when it comes to fear. It's like, how often am I going to go look in that mirror? Because I know that with enough of that pain that I put myself through, a new person will develop out of that. I will find a new piece of me in that. Does that make sense? It's almost like your junk toy box. You go through it and you discover something new again. You're like, oh, this toy was so cool. I don't know why I put it in there, right? So that's what I kind of want to make sure that is very present, I guess, when we speak about fear is, you know, do you kind of, I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but do you feel the same way about like the value in understanding fear?
Yeah, I really do. I do. I believe it's a huge motivator. I hate living in it. Let's just say that I hate living and feeling, right?
Yeah.
However, it's a really good motivator, but allows me to appreciate life that much more once I get past those stages of.
But you have to go through the hurt.
You have to, yes. And that's been my experience. In order to get to the other side, you have to go through the bullshit, right?
Yeah.
The shit, the stuff that you don't want to look at or feel. You have to go through that in order to get to the other side and appreciate life just that much more and know what, you know, love is more about and, you know, how it feels and all the other stuff, right? I mean,
so this is a perfect segue into love, right? Which is the second part that you wanted to chat about. So really what comes up for me in love is, well, not for me, but kind of what you just alluded to is that on the other side of fear, what have you found when it's related to love for you?
On the other side of fear, I've learned a lot about myself. I've learned that I could work through a lot of stuff, a lot of life stuff.
As far as
not believing what my head says in a negative way and acting on those thoughts, because that's how I grew up. Based on what I thought or what you thought about me, I'm going to act a certain way and do stupid shit. You know, and I know today, through working through fear and having tools under my belt and taking action, I've been able to learn that I don't have to live like that. I could live, you know, a different way and learn more about myself and actually be okay with that. Be okay with who I authentically am. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's I've learned a lot, you know, from, you know, having fear in my life, if you will. It's been very scary some points.
Yeah.
Right. Because I mean, if I only told you what I was thinking and feeling, and I probably wouldn't be here, right, if I would have acted on those things. But that's how serious it could get. You know, what I've learned from the whole experience is that I could push through pretty much anything, regardless of what's going on from within myself.
So you see, let me touch on that a little bit, because I think it's really important it's at least for me, right? And I wanted to see how you feel about it is, excuse me, people don't understand that emotions are a bitch. Like, they are so fucking real.
Like,
You
we're talking
feel
positive
them.
or negative? We're talking negative.
Just I'm talking about emotions.
Oh, just emotions, energy, emotion, right? Yeah,
They're real.
Yep.
They seem, as you experience them, they are so real. So you and I have talked at times, and I said, hey man, you know, just realize that this is here, right? I'm trying to use logic with you for the emotion, but does that logic cut through the realness of what you're experiencing?
It does. Yes.
Well, you're good, because there's no fucking way
Yeah.
that happens to me. I get
Yeah.
so caught up in the emotion
Mm-hmm.
that it's too real. And then I have to rely upon the work, as you said, that you do, which is, how do I have to walk that back to realize that it's not real and it's something that I'm perceiving, or it's something that I just feel, not it's a reality in, you know, my sphere. Suicidal thoughts, they're very real to some people.
Very real. Yep.
Right?
Depression.
Anger, depression.
Depression is one of mine.
All of these emotions, man,
Yep.
they're so real when you experience them. When you're in them, you know what I mean? You feel so like, how could this not be real? This feels so impactful to me at this moment.
Yes.
How the fuck are you going to tell me
Yeah.
that I need to stop thinking about it, or that this is just me? Right? I believe that what we were just talking about earlier is facing that fear is what starts allowing us to have that other dialogue, which is, but what if it's not real? Because if not, you're too committed to, this is real, this is happening to me.
Right.
And that person said this, and I feel this way about it. Right?
Yep.
But when you have that practice to say, but I have to look in the ugliness and be like, but what if it's not? I think that that's the mechanism that at least I've used for myself to start walking that emotion back into what I would say in objective reality, right? Objective meaning that you're going to look at it nonpartisan. You're going to say, look, I'm going to see this for what it is,
Yeah, what it is. Right.
not what I think
Right.
I'm developing it to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's awareness.
Yeah.
Is what I get from it, you know, being aware. And I think that's a like total gift. I think it's one of the best gifts that I've gotten over time from doing work on myself is awareness, being aware, knowing, hey, this is what it is, or this is who I am, this is what comes up, and it is what it is.
Yeah.
You know? And I think it's another powerful tool that we can utilize. I mean, because if you don't know, you don't know. I was just telling one of my coworkers that earlier. If you don't know, you don't know. You're naive. You're ignorant, right? I mean, so
how am I going to relate this to love? What is love?
love is a powerful thing, right? I mean, it is. But see what I get, and I try to be, depending on my mood.
How would you classify love? Was it an
Positive?
emotion?
Well, it's emotion and action. I know that for sure. For sure. Emotion and action. But in a more positive aspect, right? How can I bring you value? What can I do to bring you value? What actions can I take to bring you value?
Love can make you do really
to
ugly
understand.
things, though.
Yes. And that's been my experience too.
But it's not love doing it.
I think it's more lust, if you ask me.
But
Living in lust
so
of
this
that.
is why I'm trying to kind of dissect this with you,
Okay.
right? Is I would say love is an emotion.
Okay.
It's not like a state of mind. It's something that we feel, right? And love to me is a very illogical thought. There's nothing logical about love, in my opinion. How do you feel about that? Not about what I said, but
Right.
about love.
About
like, how
love.
do you define love?
I've always believed that love is a very positive, good thing. You
Is
know?
that how you've experienced it? Is why you say
Oh
that?
yeah.
Okay.
Sure thing. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. A little bit more, a lot of happiness involved, a lot of good, and yes, feelings too. Yeah. I mean, from within. Yeah. I mean, as far as thinking more positive, feeling that,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say butterflies sound all corny and shit, but I mean,
But it's probably that's how you experience
yeah,
it, right?
yeah. The best way I could put it is having those feelings, and to agree with you. Yeah, it is an emotional.
Well, don't agree with me. Say your truth, right?
Oh, but that's my truth though.
Okay.
So I do agree with you. You see what I'm saying?
So then how do we make sense if we just said that emotions are illogical, right? And emotions are very difficult to kind of understand and they're not necessarily real. How do then we say that the love that we experience is real? Tricky question, huh?
Yeah, very tricky. Very tricky. Now you have me at a point where now I really have to think in deep thought. Yeah.
So I say this because, that's something that I've been thinking about for a long time.
Okay.
Right? I've experienced love. I do love a person. And when I try to break it down logically, it's very difficult for me to back into love. Because love is this feeling, right? And for anybody that's ever done certain type of drugs, it becomes very mechanical, because you know that you could take a substance and then all of a sudden you think you feel love,
Right.
or you feel this very exacerbated emotion but how could it not be this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then when you come off that experience, then they'll call it like you sobered up, and then you might see something within a different context. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. And it could, yeah.
So then what's the difference between that exogenous love to the thing that you feel inside you? Which one's more real?
I want to say the one that's from within myself, right?
What makes that more real?
Well, based on how I feel and what I'm experiencing,
But how's that more real? See, I'm gonna challenge you on this.
Okay.
How is it more real than how you feel when you take it exogenously? What makes it more real?
Well, I believe feelings, of course, are real, right? And I believe it motivates me to come from a place of love and positivity and do the right thing.
But those are things that you have said are positive effects for yourself.
Right.
Right? So that is an outcome or a byproduct of you feeling love, right? Think about it. Like if you're ever in love, you kind of have a little more pep to your step, and you might wake up in the morning, you're a little bit like Cinderella, man. Birds just kind of seem to sing to you a little bit better, and the sun seems to be, that sunrise is like, man, that's beautiful. Don't know why. I've experienced it. You just feel like everything's better.
Birds are chirping, all that. Yeah.
But if you ever take an exogenous drug, you would feel the same way.
Right.
So
temporarily.
But you feel it.
I remember when I smoked marijuana when I was younger, I tried it a couple times, and now I was just
But you see what I mean, right?
Yeah.
It's something exogenous. It doesn't necessarily matter what type of drug.
Right.
Well, I guess so. Some of them don't do that. But what I'm saying is the idea of if you can take something that makes you feel that way, then what is the reality of why we actually experience love? Because we just feel that way without it. So does that make it more authentic?
I would agree, yes.
Why?
Because depending on who you are and what you do, I mean, you're pretty much, I don't want to say manufacturing that from within, but it's coming up from within yourself, right? So it's,
what makes that, is it just because you feel that it's, I don't know, your body created it, that it's more real than what you would then talk to yourself and say, but what is the reality of love?
I think it's more like your brain manufacturing it, or, developing it, based on what you see and what you do as far as, for your mental, and like for me, I mean, here's an example, like when I meditate and I read, and, I'm not religious or anything, but I do some prayers, I pray on a regular, 2-3 times a day. But when I line all those up and I kind of shift my mentality, it actually manufactures, and I keep saying manufacture, I don't know why. I don't want to say that term.
But you create
within
create,
yourself, there you
right?
go. Yeah, that's probably a better term. I'll create that love aspect, but it takes over time. It's not just like an instant, right? I mean, it depends how consistent I am. But I know when I'm very consistent and I do those things, love gets created.
Are you creating love within yourself, or are you creating a positive outlook? So let me hit you with this. Let's see what you think. I used to be the world's biggest pessimist when I was younger.
Okay.
This was my mentality for that. It was, if I could think of the worst shit possible and that didn't happen, I'm already up. Does that make sense? Like,
yes.
I was expecting the worst The worst didn't happen, so I guess I have to consider it as being better. Like I got the better end of this deal.
So I can relate with you because I was the same way. Yeah.
Okay.
Back in my day.
So this is good. We're starting
Yeah,
off on the
very
right foot
good.
that you're
Come
getting
on.
it.
Yeah.
Okay. So now that being said, I had to make a shift when I was in my teens. And the reason that is I realized that I couldn't experience life in a different way. It always had this like moot, how do you say it? Moot tone, like it was muted.
Mute. Yeah.
So I couldn't experience highs because I was always so low. I just kind of
Right.
came up a little bit, but I was
Right.
still in that area, right? And then, of course, we all experience the, do you see the glass half full or half empty,
Right.
which is kind of what makes us first start thinking, like, what do you mean by that? The reality is that the glass has half liquid in it
Right.
of its total volume, very objectively, right? Or like technically. But to me, it kind of woke me up, this idea of perception. So you could perceive it as half empty, meaning that you lost half, or you could perceive it as half full, as though it's in the way to be full.
Right.
Right? So it's more. Now, does the reality of that glass change? No, not at all. It
Right.
still has the same amount of liquid. But does the ability to perceive in a positive manner, does that help you create something in your life? This is where I'm challenging the love thing.
Okay.
Because what if you're not creating love in your life, but you're creating the positive outcome that you're seeking to have by shifting your mentality and all the other work that you do, right? You know what I mean? Like you go through and you maybe look in the mirror for a little bit, don't like what you see, and then you start creating new opportunities for yourself in a positive light.
Right.
Maybe that's more in alignment to like the actual outcome that you want to create.
Right.
And I've seen that, and that's something that I now practice daily. And the reason that is because I am not trying to create love in my life. I'm trying to create the outcome that I agree with most.
There you go.
And it's always going to be something positive. It may not be something positive for somebody else, but the idea is that this is for me, right? So I have to see it or perceive it as positivity.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
A lot of sense. It does.
So this is why I challenge you with this idea of love, because to me, love is an emotion. And it's probably the greatest fucking drug that you could ever take is love, right? Because if I could bottle it and sell it, I'd be the richest person on this planet. I'm sure I would, right? But that's still, to me, not real. It's fake, right? Because I could exogenously feel the same way. Or when you get the butterflies in the stomach, maybe you need somebody new that kind of brings that out within you.
Right.
Well, it's still fake. Because eventually in most relationships, it fades, right? As you get past your, what they call the honeymoon phase. And
well, do you believe it fades because of lack of maintenance and work? And your opinion and experience?
I think, let's just say that we're going to oversimplify it because it's a little more complicated than that because people have different situations, things happen in relationships, right? But I would say that if we simplify it to make it as generic as possible, I would say, you fall out of love. Because what was love? It's an infatuation with the person.
Okay.
You get comfortable. They're there every day. You wake up with them. And then it becomes like, this thing that you don't pay attention to, right? The idea of the sun.
Right.
None of us think of it because it just comes up every day. You never thought of like, what if the sun doesn't come up? You're just like, you're out your mind. What do you mean the sun's not going to come up?
Take it for granted like it is going to come up, right? Like
right?
Complacency, right?
Until it doesn't. And then what do we do?
Start freaking out.
But you see what I mean? Now something I expected didn't happen. Isn't that what happens in most of our relationships?
It does. Yeah.
Either you or your partner. Something changes.
But I could back that up with me. I stopped doing one or more things as I did in the beginning.
Well, hold on. Before we go there, because now you're going to get into the specifics of it. We're trying to keep it general, right?
General, there you go.
The idea is something changed.
Something changed, yes.
Something changed that we weren't expecting.
True.
Why weren't we expecting it?
I'd say because we took it for granted. We're used to what was going on.
Because we lost the ability to appreciate the things that we once didn't have. Because now it's there.
Yes.
Right? We live in a first world country, luckily.
Luckily, yeah.
We turn the faucet, water comes out.
Yes. Hot or cold, depending on which one you
Right?
put. Yep. For the most part.
For people that have gone to second or third world countries,
Colombia.
that's not a given. That's not like it's going to happen.
Not even paper towels or nothing. Like, barely. The places I was in, like, barely, like, toilet paper. Like,
So you have to
Yeah.
understand that things that we have grown accustomed to, we expect, right?
yes. Expectation. With an S. Expectation.
Plural.
Yeah.
So imagine, what if you started a relationship with the basis of, what if I don't expect anything? What if I work at appreciating always the things that I'm appreciating today?
Yes.
What would happen then? Would that still be love? This is what I'm challenging you with.
There you go. Okay.
Would you still feel love, or would love gradually work away from an emotion to now a authentic appreciation for another human being?
It's a good one.
Well, this is what I'm telling you I've been thinking about for years.
Yeah.
Is, I mean, fuck, man, I love love. I love to be
Yeah,
in love. I'm
yeah.
a hopeless romantic at heart.
In love. Yep.
Man, that's so great to feel that way, right? But also, are you being authentic? That is love. Do you see what I mean?
Yes.
And is that what's leading you to want to be with this other human being? Or is it you don't want to be alone? Or is it that they, codependency, like they make you feel better
Right.
about yourself?
Right.
And I believe that this is what I found to be the most difficult part in relationships in my life is I'm genuinely seeking to make relationships with people that value that.
There you go.
That constant, like, you and I have a relationship.
Yes.
Anything that you do is relationshiping.
Yes.
And to me, I don't necessarily give people in my life as much time if I feel like they don't value my time with them. Does that make sense? Like,
A lot of sense. Yes.
if you were hanging out and I'm just like, yeah, whatever, man.
I'm not going to want to hang out with you if you're
But-
like that.
Well, that's how you feel,
Yeah,
right? But
that's how I
there's
feel,
some
yeah.
people that, keep friends around and things like that. The idea is like, oh, they're just super cool. They should be around.
Right.
Does that make sense? Like,
Right.
I just want to be around them because maybe something comes of that. And I think that's it's an inauthentic
It
way
is.
of being, right? So I say that when we put it back to the context of having, personal relationships where you say like, I want to have a partner. I want to have somebody in my life that I kind of want to share this
Yes.
other side of myself or more deeper connection, right? I think that that's where shit gets squirrely
Yep.
real quick. Because what is your level of commitment? Not monogamous commitment. I mean like commitment to relationshiping that thing to create depth of connection that maybe you're not accustomed to with somebody else. Do you know what I
Right.
mean?
Yes.
We've all had one night stands. I'm sure everybody else looking at has had their own experience. Those are fun, right? But the idea is that you're not looking to retain that. You're looking at it as a snapshot in time. Like that's going to
Right.
be really fun. And I
True,
enjoyed
true.
myself. That was
Yes.
great. Moving on, right? I'm going to the next thing.
Right.
But then how do you create these moments consistently with a person that you decided to be a partner
Right.
and then be authentic?
It's a lot of work, man. A
Okay.
lot of action.
So
Straight
speak
up.
into that for a little bit.
Yeah.
Like what comes up for you when, especially when we were talking about the context of the thing
Yeah.
that just recently happened for you.
Right.
How do you feel you did with that?
At first, or
Well, I mean, I'm at first. I'm just saying, if you were to
general.
look at yourself within that
time frame.
that lens or through that lens,
Mm-hmm.
how would you feel you did?
Between a 1 to 10, I believe. For the whole time being, I'd give myself a.
You're giving yourself a report card right now, so stop trying to weasel out of it. You need to be honest and say, what grade would you have given yourself?
I'd give myself a C.
Okay.
Honestly.
Which is great, right? The idea is to be
Yeah.
honest.
And it's hard for me to say that to admit it, but it's the truth. And we're talking about the truth and authenticness, right?
Always has to be the
yeah,
truth,
yeah,
right?
definitely.
Now, that's only for you,
Yes.
because that other person might think that you were like an F or maybe an
True.
A, right?
True,
like you
true.
don't know
Depends, yeah. I'll never know. Well, maybe.
Well, the idea
Depends.
is
It depends.
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't, but of course I want to know, right?
It's what you said.
yes.
You 100% now know that you have a C. What can you do about it for yourself? Because you can't go back and get a better grade. Does that make sense?
No, you can't, yeah.
So what
Once
I'm
the
saying is
damage
for
done.
you, if you acknowledge that you had a C, then what you're saying is, man, there was this much more I could have given
Yes.
myself
Yes.
to that other person in whatever way you thought that was possible, right?
Yes.
Isn't that a shitty way to look at something?
True. Because now you're starting to tap into regret and the what ifs.
Well, that's another emotion, right? And that's
Right.
funny that you say that, because why is it that that emotion comes up for you?
It's just natural, man. It's just, I honestly don't understand that part. I don't, from within myself. And that's where.
Well, we just said that
that's-
fear comes up and anger, but now why regret?
Well, it's all part of the family, you know, and with the negative.
Why regret specifically?
Well, because I tap into the what if, and I start looking at different scenarios, and you know, just listening to all that noise in my head and within myself,
Okay.
you know, and you're right. Why regret when I know better? When I know that, hey, it is what it is, man, and life goes on, you know. But while there was, you know, there are times, and there was a time where I didn't want to accept that. I just didn't, you know.
So how could love fix your C?
Like I shared earlier, just tapping into the acceptance.
Be very clear
Okay.
what I'm asking you. How could more love have given you? How could having more love in yourself, would you have given yourself an A? How would you have achieved that? I don't understand.
The way, well,
Because right, that's where we started the
Yeah,
conversation with, like,
definitely.
hey, love is also a powerful emotion.
yes.
I love love, but how could love have made a difference for you?
Well, it could have shifted my mentality and helped me see.
To be honest, man, I know a little bit of the personal stuff. I don't think that you had a lack of love. Does that make sense? It's like
Yes.
you didn't have a deficit in love.
Right.
So I don't understand how more love could have made you give yourself an A, because I don't see how that would have inspired you to do anything.
Right.
Does that mean, like, don't agree with me, like, correct me if you think I'm wrong. But how could love have made you do anything more than what you did?
Well, I got complacent.
But what does love have to do with that?
It had nothing to do with it, honestly.
But you see what I mean?
Yeah, I should have tapped more into the love aspect. And I should have tapped more into doing some more work in that area, you know, and taking the action.
Crazy to think this way, right?
Yeah.
Why is that? What comes up for you when you say this?
Action and doing and being uncomplacent, if that is a term. Not being too
I
complacent.
don't know. We'll go with it. Yeah.
Yeah, let's go there. But have I tapped more into working on the love aspect, right? So,
How do you work on love, though?
Well, be more positive, because I was actually angry a lot with that relationship towards the end. I was very kind
No,
of
but that was an outcome. That was because of something.
yes.
That's not where you started. That's not where you were.
No, I didn't
So
know.
you know what I mean? Like, I want to make sure that that's clear. That's not where you were.
Right.
That's what happened after
After
you
the
found
fact.
out, right? So what I'm saying is, before that moment, how could more love have helped you?
It could have helped change my perception on a lot of things. Because I honestly, before we broke it off and went our own ways, I was actually in a lot of I was living in a lot of fear, a lot of anger, a lot of pessimism, right? Why this, why that, this and that, and just always just kind of just coming out of pocket, man.
How could more love have helped that?
Well, if I would have tapped into the love aspect that much more, it would have changed my perception. It would have changed my reality. No, let me take that back. It wouldn't change the reality. It would have helped me understand more, honestly. If I
So
would have
is
tapped
love
into more
perception?
love. Yes, partially yes.
Isn't love an emotion?
It's an emotion, yeah. But it helps you see differently when you're living more in love as opposed to fear.
But love is an emotion that you feel.
Feel, yes. Yes, but
So
when I
how
feel a
could
certain way, I'm going to look at
feeling
things.
Love, what is it that you're missing that I'm trying to get at and I'm pressuring you, by the way.
I know. I can feel it.
I'm
I can
pushing
feel
you.
the tension.
So what is it that because you're bouncing from emotion to emotion. Do you agree?
I agree.
Okay. How are emotions going to help us? How does fear help you? It doesn't, right? How does
In a sense, it
anger
does.
help? Hold on. Let's peel the layers
Okay,
on this. This is
let's
so
do it.
perfect. How does fear help you? It doesn't, right? How does anger help you? It doesn't, right? So how does love help you?
Well, it probably doesn't either, right?
Well, you're considering that now, right?
Yeah.
If love doesn't help you, what would help you? In this situation, right? You have a C. What would help you?
Well, getting some awareness and understanding the situation and doing the best to not make the same mistake, from that point on.
So what would you call that?
Well, I did mention awareness, action.
Which is good, right?
Yeah.
True awareness is like the
Yeah,
idea
awareness.
of I get that there's
It's like I
something there.
understand. Yeah, I can see it.
And what
you
is
know?
the actual work then?
Well,
What's giving you the perception, like the perspective, right? Because this is what the channel's called, is Life with Perspective. So
right.
what's actually giving you the ability to perceive something different? What are you doing? Right? Remember we were talking about the
mentality,
fixing your domains, and
Yeah.
if you have a C, how could you have gotten an A, right? All these things are keep rolling into it, but it's to me, they're all the same thing. And really what it is in my book is introspection. Is the ability for you to consider somebody else's perspective and what does it mean to you, right? Like the duality of like, if this is true, then what does it mean for me?
Right.
And that idea of adopting perspectives for the sake of you understanding something better, to me, that is what creates amazing relationships.
Right.
Because love is the emotion, right? And you'll feel it, it'll kind of go away. Everything's fine though when like love is prominent, right? Like you don't have to necessarily think of it. There's not a lot of work that you have to do. It just kind of comes natural, right? Like, hey honey, you look great.
Right.
You want some, I got you flowers, right? I don't think most of us don't struggle with that phase. We struggle when I don't want to get flowers. I don't feel like doing this.
Right.
Man, do I
Right.
have to go to this party with this person? That's when the work has to start. Why? Because we're losing perspective. We're now caught in, this is our reality.
Right.
The sun's going to come up tomorrow. Why do I have to think about the sun?
Right.
Does that make sense? Like,
Makes
is
a
this
lot of
becoming
sense.
a little clearer?
Yeah, very clear.
Do you agree, though? Because you can't just agree with me. You have to challenge me in some way if you feel like it's not true.
Mm-hmm.
So for right now, you just feel like that is
No, it makes
an
a lot of
accurate statement?
sense. No, it does make a lot of sense. But we do, like you were talking about, okay, so for example, the sun, we have this expectation that the sun's going to come out. And then what happens if it doesn't, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then from there, we have to do the work as far as, okay, so if it doesn't come out, something's off. So now I need to understand it and be aware, like, okay, now I could change, sorry about that. Now I could change my perspective on it, right? And understand, like, hey, it's not out, and just accept it for what it is, and just keep working from there on out.
But how does that give you the love and feeling?
The love and feeling? It probably
Doing
won't,
that.
though. It probably won't. I mean, honestly, it probably won't give you that loving feeling because you had an expectation that the sun was going to come out and it did not, right? So more than likely, you're going to have an issue with that. And if you have an issue with that, those are not going to be good, positive feelings, right? So
But what
love's not
about
going to get created.
acceptance?
Yeah, acceptance.
When does
yeah, of
acceptance
course.
come in?
It comes in when you tap into it. You have to, if you could accept something, and it does come from awareness and realizing, okay, this is the issue, right? The sun didn't come out, right?
Do you remember that we had a conversation? I don't know if we can go into it, but the idea was...
Let's go. Come on. It's fine. Yeah, let's do it.
Remember, this is going to be online.
They need to hear this.
Remember, you spoke to me, right?
Yes.
And you said, and I remember this very vividly, that you were saying, man, I was throwing down. It was like great. Things were like, the chemistry was there, right? And then you told me, you're like, man, something, I don't know what happened. It just, that spark faded, and it's like difficult for us to kind of get things started again, right? To be physical, which I really don't think the physical aspect is what really truthfully was the issue, right? It's intimacy.
Intimacy.
Do you agree?
Yes.
Like that's really more what we're talking about?
Yeah, intimacy.
So do you remember this conversation between us?
Yes.
Okay. We did something together, right? And we chit-chatted. What did you experience when it came to intimacy? What is it that I challenged you with? Do you remember?
Kind of.
What is it that you remember?
We're talking about intimacy, and we're talking about...
Because remember, that was going at the time. You just felt like, man, it's just not popping off anymore like it was. And we had a conversation.
Everything's more like a chore. You
right.
know, at that point in time, I remember. And I was just breaking into pretty much complaining, or venting, if you will.
Yeah, we weren't complaining. You were just talking to me.
Yeah, just talking. We were having casual conversation. I said, hey, man, this, that, and the other's not there.
Yeah.
Something's missing. And it took two, honestly. It wasn't just all me, but it was...
No, but let's just focus. The idea,
okay,
yeah, the focus is on you. So the idea is we had a chit-chat, though. Do you remember it? And if you don't, that's okay. I'll just kind of recap it.
Just recap, because vaguely I could
so
remember
we had a conversation about how you felt about things, what was coming up for you, and just your general, like, man, what the fuck is happening? Like this, I don't understand. Like, where's that feeling at that's
Right.
not coming naturally, right?
Right.
This is what I'm saying about going back into love is you will not, quote unquote, feel love eventually
Right.
because it's an emotion.
Right.
And it's only going to be when we feel the emotion. So then does that mean that we just have a shit relationship outside of that?
No.
Do we just wait for, love to come into our life as like a summer wind? Of
Right,
like,
right.
that was a cool breeze.
Uh-huh.
No, right? So
No.
what are we now going back to? We had a conversation and it was about you and about like what you were experiencing, where your mindset was at, right?
Yes.
And at the end of that conversation that you and I kind of peeled back some layers for you, did you not admit to me, you're like, man, it's there. It came right back. And I told you, I was like, yeah, as long as you remove the bullshit that impedes it, it's always natural for it to be there.
Right.
So to me, the introspectiveness is what has helped me. And, obviously what I use with you and things like that is I don't have to conjure feelings for somebody, right? Like I don't have to work at creating love feelings. I just have to realize what's in the way and why. And when I deal with that, everything else comes natural. I don't have to be like, man, but why do I love this person? And do I want to be in love with them? Like, no, man, that's bullshit. That's just, those are conversations that you don't need to have.
Right.
You need to have of like, what's in the way for me? What am I experiencing? Why?
Right.
And when you make sense of those things, everything else comes right back. Do you remember now? Kind of like that's what we were talking about. And that was like the outcome of it.
Yeah. Very vaguely. Cause that was a while ago.
Yeah, but that was also,
Like last year.
remember, this was when like challenges were already happening.
Yeah.
You were mustering the courage to kind of carry the relationship for a little bit, right? So this was difficult. It was a difficult place that you were in to do this much work.
Yes.
Especially when you're looking at, there's no, which I totally understand, right? Because I'm kind of going through something like that right now, is there's no validation of your emotion or your feeling.
Uh-huh.
So it's very difficult for you to kind of soldier up and say, I'll carry this right now. You know that
Yes.
that's hard.
Very hard.
Right.
Yeah.
So I point that out because as we talk about love and as you say, I feel love, I don't agree with people that use love, a feeling, as like, that's what, makes me soldier on, because it's a cheap high. It's going to run out.
Yes.
And when you run on that, what are you left with?
Nothing. For like nothing. Yeah.
So you have to run on objectivity and introspectiveness.
Right.
Right? So one
Yes.
of the things that I used in my relationship was, I had a gorgeous girl. Physically, there was nothing wrong there, right? But then I would get tired of it. And I would be like, man, there's just so many things in the way. I don't know how to naturally just want to feel very intimate.
Right.
And so then I realized that a lot of the things were in my head, right? I'd gotten, we all get accustomed to it.
Right.
What is it? I think I saw one of those shirts on like, one of those redneck shirts that says, no matter how hot she is, somebody's tired of her shit.
Yeah.
Right? Like I love that quote.
Yeah, I've seen that one too. Yeah.
So the idea is
social media or something. Yeah.
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 So
definitely.
I had to basically think that and say, or stand it on its head. Well, if somebody's tired of her shit, somebody wants her. And why? Why would you want this person in your life?
Right.
What is it that you fell in love with originally? And then you remove those things that got in the way of that, and you create the perspective again, and it just like unlocked it for me every time. Like it was no longer a chore to want to be intimate or to continue this relationship. It was just very natural. You know what I mean? Like, the difference between something forced and something not natural.
Yeah.
Right?
Definitely.
I think we all experience that when, we're having to make sense of, man, do I really want to be with this person? But, are they cool? Do they do this? That's already too much conversation.
Right.
That you're trying to make sense of it. It has to just be like, damn, this person just, I don't know what it is. They just do it for me. Now you back into understanding your feelings towards it, right?
Yes.
Like you need to make sense of them, because it can't just be you love to be in love.
Right.
Because you're always going to run out.
Yeah.
So when you make sense of why you fell in love or why the love feeling came up, now you're being a little bit more based in reality. Oh, I see that this person shared this or had this commonality, or does that make sense? Like you're finding the reasons that came up that you weren't being objective about. You were just like caught up in a moment.
Yes.
When you connect back with those, when you're in a relationship, it seems to lift the bullshit.
Yeah.
And things come natural again. So I apologize, because I thought maybe you would have remembered this a little bit better. So I'm sorry, man. Good. But really, that's what comes up for me when you say love. Because I think there's a lot of people just like you that are going to say love is the way. But I know plenty of relationships that have love and don't work out.
True.
Well, it's not love. Love
like
wasn't ever the issue. It's everything else. And if we're not going to work towards it like any other relationship to remove the bullshit, then love runs out.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like you get tapped. What else are you going to do once
you're tapped?
Once you're tapped with love, what else comes into the relationship to fill that void? Well, it can't be more love.
Right.
It can't be exogenous love, because that costs money and that costs time and that costs health.
Yeah.
What are you going to do that's sustainable for the relationship? It has to be great communication.
Communication's key.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Great communication and the ability for both of you to be objective.
There you go. Yep.
So now, right, what if I told you I could get you the perfect package in another human being? What would that include? From not physical stuff, right? Because
it's a given, yeah.
Yeah. You have in your mind's eye what that would be.
Yeah.
It's more of a package when you say, and this is also hopefully for ladies seeing this, is like we're two guys that maybe just a little bit different than most, but the idea is that maybe there are a lot of men out there that maybe just don't express themselves in this way.
Right.
So how would you say is, in your mind's eye, what are the key traits that you are looking for when you actually think of a partner, right? Like somebody that you're like, this person is going to be my partner. I want to share a life with them. What comes up for you? Like, as this is like something I really look for.
Well, someone that has a good head on their shoulders, someone that's.
What does that mean though? You can't be vague. You gotta be specific.
Well,
when you say a good head and holder,
that's smart. That's logical. That's smart. That has some humor. They know what they want in life. They have goals. They have a vision, on life for hopefully in a positive way, not in too much negative or someone that's too pessimistic. You know what I mean? Because I don't roll with that very well with who I am today. How are they? Are they giving? As far as time and mindset, and are they willing to communicate, and are they willing to just be a good authentic person, just authentic, and that's the perfect ideal partner. I mean, that's what I would look for, those traits. What are they into? How do they see the situation? How are they standing up in the greatest of adversity? How are they dealing with the BS? Yeah. And that's what I look for. I mean, recently I I have a friend, she's female, and we met, and is it a potential to be a relationship, longevity? Yes, you know, in the stages of getting to know. But I looked at all these things, and she has most of them, and I'm like, wow. So it's there.
So does that shift your interest from looking at it as something casual to something that you want to invest more time in? Or did you start off with them saying, I'm not looking for casual at this moment, so I'm always actually looking for what is the next? Like, shit, I'm probably fucking this up. It's really like, how are you perceiving this person? Are you open always to a partner? Or is that something that you have to be in the mindset for? Does that make sense?
I'm always open. Pretty open-minded about it. Especially when I meet a female, and I want to get to know her.
I like how you say that. When I meet a female,
right?
Must be the old you. For all the females out there.
When I meet a chick now.
Yeah. No, really, it just comes down to really you saying. I mean, the elephant in the room is we're always going to be attracted to somebody, right? There's always going to be this first initial
For me,
attraction.
it's natural. Yeah, it is. It's
I think it's for everybody, though, right? You know what I mean?
I've been
like let's all be honest to ourselves.
Let's keep it real.
It's for everybody. But
yeah,
once you get beyond that, right? There's either a natural interest or, you know, we're all a little bit fugly. So when somebody gets beyond that, they're like, oh man, you know, that guy Anthony's pretty cool. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like we're all going to have that natural reaction. And maybe it's like, nah, not necessarily looking for somebody like you, but you're like, God damn, are you just an amazing person?
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
like
a lot of sense.
When you start looking into it. So you're saying that your approach to things is honestly very open.
Very open.
To say, look, I want to actually get to know this person.
Definitely.
Is that something that you did before? I'm not saying like yesterday. I mean like when you were younger.
When I was young, no, I was way different when I was younger. I was probably, I don't want to say opposite, but I wasn't the way I am today as far as being open-minded. I was very close-minded, if you will, and I was very, what could I get out of this individual and this person? That's how my mindset was. But over time of doing a lot of work on myself and having the introspect and everything, that's all shifted and changed, you know, to where I'm more open-minded and I'm very willing to, you know, get to know someone and check out the traits and do all that stuff, you know? So
what made you make that shift? Beyond, I know that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
But I'm saying specifically, if you could say, you know, for any of the young guys or maybe some of the lost guys maybe looking at this, is what allowed you to make that shift from being short-sighted, right? Or not short-sighted.
Close-minded?
No, not even that. Is our immediate need far supersedes what we actually want. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
What allowed you to make that shift? Like, was there anything like that really comes to mind, like really powerful that you're like, these things kind of allowed me to see it in a different way?
Yes.
What was it?
It's when my daughter was born. Naturally, it just started happening.
Okay.
Yeah. If you want
Why
to
is
get
that?
deeper. Well, one, I was having a little girl. You know, I was looking at my life and how I was and how I was acting. You know, it's just a lot of immaturity, a lot of close-mindedness, a lot of...
But explain that a little bit more. So why is it that you were having a little girl that now made?
Well, because I didn't want to raise her up to meet someone like me. So I had kind of like a reality check, right? And saying, okay, if I want my daughter to date someone good,
or you don't want her to experience somebody like you were.
Right, like I was, you know, as far as what could I get out of this person, very close-minded.
To her mom, I'm so sorry because that's who you had. I'm just kidding.
Right? That's another story for
another
another
bit of truth.
Yeah. No, but
look at who you are today, right? The idea is that there's no right and wrong, right? Because that's a question of morality. Right. What we're saying is there was something that happened for you. Yes. And it connected with you in such a way that you're like, holy shit, I need to be a little bit of introspective.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Right? Now, I'm glad that there was something in your life to do. Otherwise, you still would have been the same person. Right? Did you ever go back and think about all the people that you were with after you had that introspection?
Yes.
So do you feel like, I get that was you at the moment, but is that who you wanted to be? Like if you go back and you're like, man, did I really want to be this guy? Or were you always trying to be who you are today?
It's kind of 50-50.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, and the reason being is because I enjoyed doing whatever I wanted to do in my life, right? Being too free
Who doesn't, man?
spirited. Yeah.
Who doesn't like doing their own shit?
However, I was getting a lot of headaches from being that person, so I wanted to do
So
something
what do you mean by
different.
headaches?
Well, you start hurting people. People start catching
Oh,
feelings.
I see what you're saying.
All
Yeah,
that
yeah.
stuff. Now it's
Yeah.
becoming just a chore and a headache
Yep.
and all this other stuff. So, through that whole experience, naturally I started changing from within. Like, I need to do something different, and I want to do something different because I'm sick and tired of getting these results. I'm sick and tired of either getting hurt or hurting people or being just in a downhill spot negative. So I need to start making changes and like being more open-minded and coming from a place of love. I need to stop just doing whatever the hell I want, and so yeah, it's
So did that. So no, I love that you're saying this, man, because I think this is just so real that your immediate need had to take the backseat to the person that you're trying to become.
yes.
We all have immediate needs. Like,
Well, of course.
if you're not saying, you're a fucking liar.
Yeah.
Like, you're lying to yourself. So it doesn't go away, right? It's not like somehow you're now this Buddhist monk that walks around and has full control of yourself.
That's not my truth. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So then what you're saying is that it's a constant thing that you have to work at because there's more value to you now to being who you choose to be
Yes.
than there is for you to be reactive to whatever your immediate need is, right?
Right.
And I hope people connect with this because to me this is powerful, man. Like you sharing this, right?
Yes.
Is the amount of effort and the amount of commitment that you have to that is pretty fucking strong because every day you must get challenged with it,
I
right?
get challenged. Yeah, I get challenged on a regular. We could call it on a regular.
Yeah.
And I have to have a lot of discipline to say, you know what, this is the path I'm on and I want to stay on it as opposed to diverting. Because every time I divert, thinking the grass is greener over here, it's not green. You get what I'm saying? And there's times where I do have some regret, but like, oh damn, I just wish I would have stayed on the path. And I get sick and tired of that. I didn't want to keep doing that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
No, this is why I'm saying, like, I'm glad that you're sharing it because to me, this is like very powerful for anybody out there that you don't walk the path that you choose, right? Like, let's make sure you chose this. So you don't walk this path because it is the path of least resistance. You walk it because you are staying true to who you are. But in order to be that, you have to be committed to staying the course. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. Yes.
So to me, that's powerful because it's fucking hard.
Yeah.
And I think that this is why we have so many people out on the planet right now that just, hey man, I'm gonna fuck you before you fuck me.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean?
Very
Like somehow
lost.
that's better.
Yeah, you call it lost. Very it's not good. I say it's not good. People will say, "Oh, that's good. That's how it is. That's whatever they want to say." But
they're
in reality,
justifying it, right?
They're justifying, rationalizing, and I've been that person. That's why I could agree.
But you could have still been that person, and you're not.
Yeah,
This
I'm
is
not.
what to me
and I make that
is
transition. Yeah,
that's what I appreciate about
Seeing
you,
it
honestly.
through, yeah,
is seeing that the thing that I know to be very difficult, you are willing to continuously take on and say, did I do it right? Well, there's no right, wrong. So you're saying,
right.
Could I have done better?
Better, exactly. And I question myself with, on different levels and different aspects, nowadays. And I have a lot asked myself, like, those questions. You get what I'm saying?
No, yeah, of course.
It is very powerful. It's always, especially through writing, I always try to spot check, like, could I have done better?
Mm-hmm.
Am I going to do better? Or I will do better. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure.
Based on my experience, based on what I've been through, based on how I felt, based on what I was feeling. Same thing, but based on what I was thinking there.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was trying to say. So yeah, and that's what it's about. It's always about spot checking, whether you just in your mentality or writing or just communicating, talk with people, because between our conversations, you might bring something up that has me thinking like, damn, okay, well, maybe I could work towards that or work on, doing something different and better or whatever the case is,
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that's the power of communicating, not just in a relationship, but just with anyone or anywhere or anything. you know?
Well, I also think that you're brushing on the subject of authenticity, right?
Yes.
Because
Oh,
you could be
definitely.
very fake, or you could lie to yourself and say no. And that's what I'm hoping also to create with a lot of people seeing some of my guests come on and be so authentic. Is there's so much value in authenticity because it's so rare now in our time,
Yeah, it is.
that I think that you deciding that authenticity has more value than anything else, and you
Right.
stand for that, then you become a champion of it in your own life
Right.
and your circle that you're around, right?
Right, definitely.
And I think that that's why I appreciate you as a friend, because I see that you value that as a commodity.
Yes.
Do you know what I
Very,
mean?
yes.
And you share in that value by saying, I'm willing to stand for the authenticity myself.
Right.
And to me, that's like one of the most important things that I can have with friends is authenticity, because I don't want you to say, I don't need you to process what you're saying for the sake of better delivery to me. I need you to be as authentic as possible and then help me understand what I don't.
Right.
Does that make sense? Like you
Yeah,
deliver something, I
definitely.
don't like hearing it.
Right.
Then you work at saying, but Steve, look, let me help you understand what I'm saying.
Right.
Instead of, he doesn't like what I'm saying, so let me not say it.
Right. Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's why I appreciate about you. And that's why I really appreciate you like coming on and sharing these things. And hopefully everybody else picks up on this. Is just the level of the authenticity that you have to have doesn't come by being, Jenny from the block. Like I just keep
Right.
it real with people. The idea is that authenticity comes from you willing to look in that fear mirror and say, who am I?
Right.
Right. And like, I can't shake you in the person that you are. You looking in that mirror constantly creates you to be more and more authentic.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
That's where I think that this whole conversation about fear and love is a duality on what we don't want to look at. One we want to, and we want to experience more, and the other one we just don't want to look at. And the value there is that we need to look at both, right? We need to
Right.
question why we fear. We need to question why we love. Because then when we get real answers for ourselves, we feel free from those emotions.
Yes.
We feel like we're in charge of our own life and the decisions that we make. Well, at least that's been my experience, and I think you're communicating that too, right?
Oh, yeah,
That's your
definitely.
experience
Yeah,
with
yeah,
it.
Definitely.
So to me, that's like the empowerment of freedom. That's where you
Yes.
get freedom, is by being objective and being introspective to say, but
Right.
why do I feel these emotions,
Right.
right? And why do they feel so real? Emotions are not real, but they fucking feel that way.
Yeah.
And it's our job to figure that out for ourselves.
Right.
Because you could tell me all day, but then I'll justify away why you're wrong because it's not how I feel. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
So having friends like you, and for me to understand the value of authenticity, allows me to hear something that maybe you're telling me that I don't want to hear at the moment.
Right.
Does that make sense? It's
Yes.
like, I might call you up, I want to talk about something, and your authenticity, I will value that more than how I feel about it.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so that's what I'm hoping comes through with our conversation, that if you don't have that in your life, or if you're not experiencing that, I challenge you to go create that. Like for yourself, you go out there and create the authenticity within your life. I had to do that. A lot of my family, if you saw me with them, you would be like, man, you weren't even born with these people, right? It's like, yeah, I was. I just chose, right?
Right,
Kind of as you
right,
did.
yeah.
Like you chose to, I don't want to say move on, because that's not it. Like I love my family. It's you chose that's not your path.
Right.
And you started walking your own.
And you're not in that anymore. You're kind of on a different path. you
Yeah,
know?
exactly.
Yeah, trust
So
me,
that's what
yeah.
becomes powerful for me. I hope that you guys get that from this, is that you get to choose your own path and walk it. And with that, man, I want to thank you for coming on. Thank you
Thanks
for
for
being
having
so
me.
honest. I mean, this is tough.
Very,
This is not
yeah.
easy. So I really appreciate you sharing. And I really hope that, when this goes up online, that maybe hopefully you get a lot of feedback. So with that, do you maybe want to share some of your social stuff, that if somebody
yes.
sees you on here, maybe they can like follow you or tweet back or whatever the shit you guys do nowadays?
Yeah. Yeah. So first of all, I just want to thank you guys for tapping in and kind of checking us out. Want to thank Steve right here for having me.
Thanks,
I
man.
appreciate you, man. I was very excited to come on. And if you guys want to check me out, you guys can check out the website, which is Rello Photo, which is RELLOPHOTO.com. That's where all my photography stuff is on there, and you can message me through there, or check me out on social media, which is Facebook at Mazzerello, or Instagram at Mazzerello, and also Twitter, Anthony Mazzerello. Snapchat, Mazzerello.
And I'll get all your details and I'll put it like in the bio just to make it a little easier.
And the bottom line is, it's not so much so, you know, I could get so many likes and so much this, so much that. It's just for us to connect and kind of give each other feedback on something. You have something I could bring value. If I have some value I could bring to you, cool. Vice versa, that'll be cool too, because the only thing that makes this world go around is, you know, us bringing value to each other and helping others and doing all the other stuff. So I just really appreciate you guys. And yeah, we'll just see what the future holds and, you know, see what's on the next one.
I hope so, man. I hope that we could do this again in some time, and you know, maybe you can update everybody from seeing this one to where you at this time that we do it again, and
right.
hopefully share some new stuff, man. I mean, we're such complex people. There's no way that I could ever peel back the layers and have people really see who you are.
Right.
But if anybody really did enjoy this, and you know, you enjoy this fucking amazing human being right here, please go and try to see if you could connect with him. He's a really open guy, and you know, you're just awesome, man. And thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it. So with that, you know, thanks everybody for checking it out, and we'll see you in the next one.